Hi, this is Dan. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of my display so you can kind of see how I have done various things, which is a little bit different than some other people have done things, so I thought it was kind of interesting to see. So I'm going to start here with my arches. These are kind of mini arches. Each one is basically just a 5-foot section of PEX off the shelf from Home Depot. It was actually two of them was a 10-foot section that I kind of just cut in half. They just have pixel strips inside of them. I created these little stands for them out of PVC, nothing major, relatively cheap. And then to get them to bend and hold, I just use these sections of bungees that I found off of at Home Depot as well. Relatively simple, relatively easy, cheap, nothing major. These things can be kind of just picked up and moved around if I want. As I'm adjusting things, I can kind of move things around. I haven't had any issues of them migrating or anything with high winds, but I suppose it is possible. I do run these things at fairly close to about like 75 or 80%, which is a lot higher than the rest of the stuff, so I do feed them kind of from the middle. There's two strings coming right here into the middle with 3 arches going one way, 3 arches going the other way. That way I don't have to deal with any type of power injection or anything like that. We follow the cords. They feed off of some extra ports on the controller that's in the box there for the Megatree, which we will cover in a little bit. But they just kind of feed out from there. If we go over here to the left, we have what I call my bush matrix, which if you kind of go up close, it's basically vinyl or plastic hardware cloth that I found at Lowe's. Pushed a bunch of square nodes into them. It is 100 long by 14 tall. It's just kind of mounted on a frame that is made out of just PVC pipe, half-inch PVC that I painted green, so you can't really tell it's there. Like if it was white, you'd see it a lot more than you do with it painted green. For the most part, when it's time to tear it down, none of those PVC sections are glued together, so I can just pop them all apart, and they kind of collapse down. The matrix kind of rolls up nicely. To hold it up, I just actually, if I can find one, you can kind of see, I just kind of tie it to the bush. Seems to work fine. We had some wind this year and it didn't affect anything, so it works. And then to take it down, just to kind of go through and cut all those little strings. Not a big deal. Coming down, all of them come over here. Each string has its own line into the controller, which I'm going to pop open and see. So let's see if we can do this one-handed. This is an F32B. You can see I have plenty of open ports for future expansion. I'm using the 14 here for the bush, and then these two kind of go off to some of the mini trees, which I'll cover in a bit. Actually, I like these little battery boxes. They're relatively waterproof if you hot glue all of these things to seal them up. I've never had any problem with water. This here is the Wi-Fi adapter. You can see there's no Cat 5 or anything like that. This is a Beagle Bone running in a remote mode. Actually, it's still on, so I shouldn't probably do this, but there's still power. I can lift this right out if I have to change anything. You can kind of see under there is the Beagle Bone with the Wi-Fi adapter. And that's pretty much this whole controller. I mean, like I said, I'm using 14 strings for the matrix, 2 strings go out to the mini trees, and I think I have 2. Yeah, there's 2 empties that I have hooked up that I'm not using. They're just kind of there for now. Relatively simple. 2 power supplies, kind of distributed across. I try to balance the power across the 2. Not that I really need to. This doesn't use a whole lot. I only run it 35%, so not a big deal. So, as I said, there's these 2 mini trees right there come off this controller as well. These are just Boscoyo. That's a large and a medium, if I remember right, with their respective stars. I don't do the back since nobody can see them, so you can kind of see they're both no pixels in the back. Really, just push pixels. I tried to. If you see the on the larger one, I kind of left the bottom, and the reason for that is to allow for a 100 count strand. I didn't have to deal with anything special. It's just that the numbers worked out that well. So it's a 100 count strand and then 20 for the star. Nothing major. And that's just a full 100, I believe. 80 for the tree and then another 20 for the star. And those are exactly the same as what I have over on this side as well. So nothing complex. So we'll go into the mega tree. The mega tree, this iteration is 32 strands around, 50 tall. The front strands, these are the original pixel strips that from years ago. They're kind of like a translucent. I had, at that time, I bought enough for a 24 strand tree, so when I moved to 32 strands, I couldn't get them anymore, so that's why these back ones are kind of black. They don't really match. Next year I'm kind of hoping to go up to a 48 strand, so I'll probably replace all of these with black, but at night you don't really know that some are different than the others. It just kind of looks a little funky during the day, but not a big deal. This ring at the bottom is just 1/2 inch PVC. There are 3 sections of it that I just kind of connect together. They're actually screwed together, so at the end when I take this down, I just pop the screws out. They fling around, so they're 10-foot lengths, and then I just kind of store them straight. And then when I put the tree up I just put them back together and screw them together. Just regular standard off-the-shelf hooks from Home Depot that I've spaced correctly. They seem to hold things well. To keep tension, I just use more straps and then just tent stakes to hold it there. It's kind of loosened up it's been up, like when I first put it up it was nice and taut, but you can kind of see like over here it's loosened up a little bit. If I really had to, I could come in and retension those, and I may do something better like next year using like bungees or something to really hold it taut, but for the most part this works. On the top there's a star, just a normal star, nothing big. I did have some problem with the data length for that, so you can kind of see I have a null pixel right here for up to the star, but not a big deal there. The controller, pretty much the same as the bushes. It's a BeagleBone black. It's red because the industrial version, but that shouldn't matter. Again, we have 16 ports there for the tree, and then various other things. We have the other 2 mini trees. The arches are up here someplace, and then some of the candy canes, which I'll cover in a second, are here. And again, I like this box. I can lift the whole thing out if I need to. There's the Wi-Fi adapter for this one. Again, there's nothing, no Ethernet. I really hate Cat 5, so you won't see any Cat 5 in my display at all. I'm too colorblind to be able to create Cat 5 cables reliably, so I kind of given up and said Wi-Fi for everything. That said, all of these controllers run in remote mode, so I don't have to deal with lots of data, just sync packets. And we'll come over here, talk a little bit about my candy canes, because I really like these things. For years I had the cheap plastic candy canes that you get at like Walmart for like $1 or whatever, but I kept breaking them. Like you can kind of see we're kind of close to the driveway, so if I park my car like right next to here instead of pulling in the garage, whenever you open the door, or more in particular my kids would open the door, they'd snap one of them off. So last year I created these. This is aluminum bar stock. I think it's a 1/2 inch or maybe 3/8. I can't remember. It looks like 1/2 inch. That are just bar stock that I got off of Amazon. I spent some time with one of the metal bar bender things and bent a whole bunch of them. You can kind of see I have 16 on this side, and then I have 12 over there as well. I had Ray Wu create these pixel strings, which are basically a kind of like an icicle. There's a 1 meter in The data kind of goes up, and then there's a return data that comes down to the connector. So I basically, in and out is right down there. Then the connector kind of goes right to the next one, and they just kind of chain right down. I run them in groups of 6, just so I don't have to deal with any extra power injection, although the way these things are made, they kind of self-power inject, so I could probably do more. And then I just kind of, like I said, just zip tied them onto my aluminum bar. These things, you can kind of hit them, you can kick them, whatever, they just don't really do much. They don't snap off like the plastic ones do, so I'm kind of happy about that. So I have the bottom 6 are run off of the tree, the other group of 6 here, and then the 4 around the sidewalk. They are run from a controller up here underneath my bay window. You can kind of see this controller there is my garden. I call it my FP garden. It runs the wreath, the snowflakes, those candy canes, and then as well as you can see mounted over there is the outline for just that. It just goes up the gutter there, and then stops. The roof is controlled elsewhere. So take a look at this real quick. This is a 600 watt power supply. It's one of the rainproof, not waterproof. It basically, but it's underneath my bay window, so it doesn't even really get any rain. 12 volt. I run everything at 12 volt. That here is actually a buck converter. It converts from 12 volt to 24 volts. I don't use it for Christmas, but for Halloween I do have some 24 volt props that I use, and that just provides 24 volt power. I don't have much, so I don't need a lot of 24 volt stuff, so the buck converter works fine. In the controller, again, this is live, turn it on, you can see the lights. This is again, another BeagleBone. Wi-Fi over here. This is using an F8B controller, where I have 8 outputs, and this is set up for DMX. I don't use the expansion header, and I also don't currently use the differential outputs for strings. May or may not in the future, I don't know, but I do use most of the pixel outputs. This DMX cable goes down and out, and then I have it breaks out into 4-core DMX. It actually comes over here, it picks up power someplace in here. So my DMX, 2 of those is running the data, 1 is ground, and 1 is a 12 volt power. 3 of them are not used right now. I use 1 more for Halloween for the 12 volt stuff, or for the 24 volt stuff. Right now, I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. This one goes off to my floodlights, and you can see I have a floodlight there, I have a floodlight there, and there's another floodlight out by the candy cane. So those are DMX 10 watt floods from Ray. Nothing major. Again, BeagleBone based controllers, I love them. That's why I designed them. They work very well. For the most part, like I said, we have one going over here. These are, my outline is stripped. This is 12 volt stripped, but there's buck converters on the back that create, you can kind of see there's a 12 and a 5 volt line on them. That gives me individual control of pixels, yet I can keep my 12 volt stuff. And I just zip tie the PVC to the gutter. It holds fine enough, and it works. Snowflakes, these are just Biscoyo snowflakes, nothing major, they just kind of do their thing. I mount them via vinyl clips. You can kind of see one there. This one is not in its proper spot. The wind did blow it off last week, and I just clipped it up there. Since my show's not running anymore, there was no point in putting it way up there where it belongs. I just kind of put it up there so it wasn't banging around. But for the most part, they work. The wreath is up there. That's a Biscoyo wreath spinner thing. My wife didn't like it as a circle. I had to put a bow on it to make it look like a wreath, so I found a transparent, it's like a red transparent wreath at, I think, Job Lots or somewhere I was at, and I basically stuck a whole bunch of pixels inside the wreath. Because it's inside this red translucent stuff, those pixels really only light up red very well, but it actually looks better during the day. And as you can see, I painted it green, so it actually looks like a wreath during the day. Going over here, another snowflake. These are my singing faces. I made these many years ago. I painted them so they look cool during the day. They also look awesome at night when they light up. These are not pixels, and they're not mini lights. You can kind of see, if I can get close, it's very flat. You don't really tell. That's because they are all these things. It's a bunch of 5mm LEDs. I can't see if I can get it focused. I can't even focus it. That I've pushed through, bent these things down, added resistors. They run on 24 volt using DMX controllers. Each one is 9. Each of the trees is 9 channels, and the snowman is 12 channels, because you can turn on the buttons or turn on the scarf or the hat, or there's a bunch of different variations that you can do with the snowman. And they just kind of sit there and sing. Again, these are mounted to the PVC. I'm not sure if you can see. If I zoom in, there's another one of those vinyl siding mounting things. Alright, zoom back out. They work. Oh, you can kind of see one of the snowman is actually unclipped. There's 6 of them holding him up, so if one of them unclips, that's not a huge deal. The rest of them. They are mounted to 1/2-inch PVC frames. By using the tiny little LEDs, there's no real wires. The PVC frame is very light, so each of these things weighs a few pounds. So putting them on the vinyl siding is very, very simple and very easy. And it's not lightweight. There's no, like I said, there's no wires like the pixels do. So they stay up there very nicely. So coming back down this side, this side of the house, you can see I have another floodlight, which is DMX, more candy canes, and these are all run by this guy behind the trash can. Again, it's a 600 watt rainproof power supply, although this is in my little wood carport shed thing that I originally made from a motorcycle that I don't have anymore, but it's now my wood storage for my wood stove. But it sits here again, just like the other controller. It's a BeagleBone based controller, again with 8 outputs. One I use for DMX, and I'm using 2 of them over here because I have down here, I do have a 24 volt power supply. That's what this is. The label kind of came off, to provide 24 volt power to the singing faces. And then the other, it does pick up 12 volt from the other for the floodlight. But I also, this is the one place where I do power injection, because this controller controls the singing faces for DMX. It controls the lights, the outline, the house outline. You can kind of see, again, it's mounted on PVC. I use these clips to just clip it to the side, and then the PVC just snaps in. Very simple. But it also controls all these candy canes, and then it controls all the icicles that are lights that are up on the roof. And you can kind of see that this roof has a bunch, and the top roof has a bunch. And the top roof has 490. The bottom roof, I think, is 230 or something like that, along with all the strip. So those need some power injection. You can kind of see, if I zoom in here, there's a power injection point there, the blue wire coming down. You can kind of see this over here. It's a 8 gauge or 10 gauge, I think. Speaker wire, yeah. It says right there, 10 gauge. Someplace, yep, 10 gauge. So that one goes up to the garage roof, and then I think back there, and if I walk all the way over here, you can see there's some more wires there, and it goes up, and that covers the top roof. So those are the two places that I do power injection, and that's only because the sheer number of pixels in the icicles and how dense they are going across that roof, and I didn't feel like running a lot of different outputs to break it up. So a lot of pixels on those outputs. And there's also the snowflake that goes there as well. So that's most of the display. As we then come out here, this is where my donation bin is. I do collect toys for a local charity. I did really good this year. And then there's my Tune 2 sign. I'm going to open this. This is P5 panels in a kind of a custom. I made this thing completely out of, I don't know, I want to say plastic. It's some sort of acrylic. I have no idea what it really is. I don't remember. It's been too long ago. But it's 2 wide, 3 tall of P5 panels. I'm going to try and open this up. I'm not sure if I can one-handed. The power is off on this, but I don't bother doing any type of waterproofing. You can kind of see the bottom is like wide open. I don't really care. It seems to work. This panel here is just held on by these zip ties, which I will just cut. Other side, and then I should be able to slide this off, tip it up, and you can see the 5-volt power supply. And that's a pocket. This is a pocket scroller. This is actually one of the original prototypey ones because it's green, it's not black, but it works. And I use all 6 outputs for the 6 panels. Makes it work very, very well. And that's what I use for my Tune 2 sign. You can kind of see these are actually indoor panels, but you can kind of see they're shiny. One of the things that I do, because I don't bother waterproofing, is I use before I put them in here, I sprayed them with a clear coat. I don't remember what type, but basically like one of the clear coats that you can get from like your hardware store. I just put like 6 or 7 layers on it, both sides, front and back, which kind of protects them from being, if something, water should get in here or whatever, it does protect them a bit. And I did design this long before Bascoyo had their strips, so I just used pieces of plastic and drilled some holes and just screwed them into there. Nowadays, just chunks of plastic, random chunks of plastic that aren't even square, that are just kind of drilled holes. It works. Nowadays, I think I would do something different, but this is what I had at the time, and it just seems to work. Again, this just kind of slides together. I can't do this one-handed, unfortunately. And then I would put more zip ties back in here to hold it and put it back up. And then one of the cable companies has this kind of off the edge, and I just kind of attach it to that. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that, but they haven't complained for the several years I've done it, so I don't really care. And I think that's my display. If you have any questions or comments, just feel free to email me. That covers pretty much everything. Again, it's all Beagle bones. For out here, completely all Beagle bones, pocket scroller, F8Bs, F32Bs. The only thing else I should mention is the master is in the garage. I don't know if it's gonna work. So this here is the Vast FM transmitter. Let's see, Vast FM, whatever. I made more of a permanent antenna that kind of is mounted to the inside of this stud there. Works very well. It actually goes a lot further than it's probably legal, but it's nice and clear. And then if I climb up here, you can kind of see my semi-master control. This is my master. It's a BeagleBone Black as well, and it fast. This is a switch, unified switch. I use this to power it from, it's a PoE injector. That way I can, if something goes wrong, I can remote into the switch and power cycle that port that it's on, and it would power cycle the BBB if I need to. This is the uplink here. This is the uplink. The BeagleBone, that one goes off to a Pi that I use for Halloween and for testing, and then these are the Wi-Fi access points. One of them's up there. That's my house. It's not mounted. I probably should mount it, but that's my house Wi-Fi. And if I flip around, I don't know if I can even see it, but that white square over on the front wall is the Wi-Fi access point for the yard. That's my show network. So all the BeagleBones out in the yard connect via that. I use VLANs, so my show network is separated via a VLAN from my house network, but for the most part they all kind of wire together, and I use the VLANs to do that. Very simple. And look at that, goes to that's the uplink down to the basement where I have my main switch and stuff like that. So that should be my entire display. All BeagleBones. Everything works very well. Everything runs in remote mode out here. Again, any questions, let me know. Thanks.